were the skies, and chill was the wind as the land was covered in a veil of malice. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and fog, prepared to rain down death and destruction upon the land. And the people did crowd for a saviour, a noble soul to save them from their impending demise. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty hero, clad in shivering metal from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did cleave his foes in two, smashing their ranks asunder with righteous fury. And when the day was done and the enemy strewn across the fields in pieces, the people did turn to the warrior and say, "We shall name this day in your honor. Speak unto us your wisdom." The warrior said one word that day: epic.
One man, one murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Please. It begins now. Yes, indeed, folks. You're tuning to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, Total Biscuit. Welcome to the show, and what a show we have for you tonight. A myriad of content, a sack full of content that can only be described as... epic. Yes! Ugh. Right, okay. What have I done this week? Well, I managed to acquire probably the most amazing item in the entirety of World of Warcraft. I have it in my hand right now as it happens. It is called Rest and Relaxation. It's a WoW TCG card. It's from the Dark Portal expansion, and it says, ability, ongoing, exhaust 2 allies in your party, draw a card. But that's not all it says. It has a 25-digit number, which is a loot redemption number. So who is walking around with the only umbrella and barbecue grill set on my server? Thank you, I'll be here all week, try the veal. Okay, stop it. Right. Yeah, this is the best thing ever, quite frankly, within WoW, and I now want to play WoW when I'm not raiding because I have a barbecue grill and umbrella. If that is not justification to continue playing this game, I do not know what is. It's awesome. And I shall be making a movie of Total Biscuit and his Barbecue Grill's World Grilling Tour, featuring such personalities as the image of Archmage Vargoth, Miss Ariana, and the Murky. And a large Kodo on the grill. It's awesome, I love it. Right, anyway, what's going on with the rest of the show? We have a variety of interesting topics, including, of course, the one and only...
Second Wind!
Second Wind this week discusses the idea of what I call cheap-ass content, also known as Blood Elves and Draenei. And we asked you last week, what were your experiences? What were your beliefs as regards to the addition of these two new races and the supposed prominence they had in the expansion? Also... does the forum community simply need to be nuked on the spot right now? I'll be talking about WoW as a community, specifically focusing on the forum community and my opinions of the MVP program, as well as heroics. Nice idea, but where's the love? What is wrong with heroics? What is right with heroics? And what could Blizzard do to improve the heroic experience in general? And of course there'll be a second win coming at the end of the show for next week, but I will not tell you what that is now. Also coming up this week in the show, wrapping the forums, a special Nutcake News, and sadly, Ask the Moloch's not coming this week. Very sorry about that. Kiki is in dissertation hell. He does not have the time. However, we will get some to you. Promise, promise, promise. And I may even get the 1 and 2 season omnibus up on the forums very, very shortly. Honest. I'll get it done, really. Anyway, so, there is also one other thing that you'll be hearing, well, at the end of this music break. You will know that a man on our station called Terpster has a tendency to do songs, and I also have a tendency to perhaps sing from time to time. There will be an exclusive new Terpster song airing early on Blue Please today for live listeners only. This will not be in the podcast. Anyone who's listening to the podcast will need to download the podcast of the Weekend Report to hear it. And of course, all the WoW Radio donators already have the song, as well as the exclusive outtakes reel. So, if you want access to exclusive content and early stuff, feel free to donate. It's wcradio.com, and the donation address is wowradiodonations@gmail.com. Anything you can give via PayPal, always appreciated. I've stopped blithering on. Let's get on with Second Wind. So, the argument I kind of made last week was that the addition of Blood Elves and Draenei into the game were pretty much a publicity stunt. And they didn't really add anything for existing players. They added something for re-rollers, people who wanted to make alts. Well, yeah, that's great and all, but the majority, safe to say that the majority stuck with their level 60s and leveled them from 60 to 70. After all, sorry, just moving things, that would, of course, be the reason they added all this 60 to 70 content in the first place. They wanted you to have a reason to continue to play your existing character. Yes, yes, yes. But a Blood Elf and a Draenei is certainly not a reason to play your existing character, so what is happening? What is going on? We are confused. Well, let's go to the emails and find out if anyone has any opinions on this whatsoever. Yes, The Rock, also known as someone who posts very, very frequently to Octel and Hordak, just coming up right after this show. And he says this: ever since Warcraft 2, I've enjoyed using High Elves in my adventures. In Warcraft 3, I was rightly upset that they weren't in until the expansion, and even then it was somewhat of a bit part. Now, thanks to the Burning Crusade, I can play as my favourite Warcraft race, and not those sissy, darky elves known as Night Elves. Honestly, with the new races and the crossbreeding of previously one-sided classes, everyone now has even more options to play what they want. Be it a blue-coloured Zoidberg, for all of you Futurama fans out there, or my favourite type of elf stomping totems and throwing up blessings. Cheap content? Objection. That's from The Rock. An interesting view. Though I would say that yes, it gives you options. However, if you've dedicated 80, 90, 100 plus days to your existing character, I believe the options you'd want would certainly be part of your existing profile and not a brand new alt. I certainly don't want to start again. I don't know about the rest of you. Let's see what else we've got. Right. David Knight, also known as Thire from the Offspring Guild on Trollbane. The new racers haven't brought any new content to anyone except for the new newbie zones that you complete in a day or two. Looking at a new skin is not new content. Rerolling Shaman Paladin is not new content. It could be done before. I don't understand the hype of these new races before the Burning Crusade came out. When they were announced, I didn't give a crap, and I still don't. Yeah, I didn't really either. The only reason I kind of rode along on the whole bandwagon of ZOMG, what's the new race going to be, is because it was a nice hype-mongering tool that I could use for my show, as well as obviously Blizzard was using that too. Why people gave a damn, I do not know. I really don't understand it. Now, if they were adding new classes, yeah, now that, that directly affects everyone, whether you're playing it or not. It affects your PvE experience, it affects your PvP experience, in many ways, including obviously your raid composition, the items that drop, and the bosses, because they have got to take into account these new classes. Now that is new content for everybody. But these aren't new classes, they're existing classes simply ported over to the other side. And as we've seen, it would appear the Paladins have certainly benefited the Horde more than Shamans have benefited the Alliance, with Horde guilds now in firm domination of the PvE stakes. Or so we would see. Let's see what else we've got in the email box. Ben Jakobek, also known as Men Elven, from Bronzebeard EU. He says, I found that the new race I rolled, Draenei Priest, reminded me of why I started this game in the first place and gave me an opportunity to try a new raid roll that I would not have done if they were not released. Okay, fair enough. Now, I can understand that, obviously, having access to Paladins and Shamans when you weren't able to do that before, yeah, that is sort of a new raid roll, and if you've already got an existing 70 and you want an alt that is that, and you don't want to go re-roll another server, then cool. I would say, though, that that really is catering to the minority. Because I would think that the majority would want to continue to push their existing class, unless they really didn't like it, in which case you'd have thought they'd have re-rolled before the expansion anyway. I can understand that maybe, hey, the only option they wanted to switch to was something they couldn't without going to the other side. But it's not really content as such, is it? It's simply an option for people that don't want to play their existing class and want to start afresh. Starting afresh, yeah, there is merit to it. But it doesn't really have an effect on everyone else that's playing. It's not really new content that everyone would want to go and play. It doesn't really give you and your existing character anything whatsoever. Now, here we go. Also, Anticus/Deacon of Steamweevil Cartel US says this: I just want to throw my 2 cents in on the subject of the new races. Since release, my main has been a human pally. I took a brief break to experiment with a warrior. Building up to BC, I was really burned out on my pally and decided that with BC I would make a new warrior. So at about 1:30 AM opening day, after breaking many speed limits, I slid into my chair and installed Burning Crusade and rolled my Draenei warrior. I found the noob zones to be at least 20 times more engaging than any other. My racial, plus hit and heal, came in very handy. I just hit 61 and I'm working my way through Hellfire, and I'm really glad I got a fresh start with the new race. I think the time was right for new races, and it made for good synergism with the lore, and us going to Outland. As soon as I heard the expansion was Outland, I knew we would get the Draenei as a race. It may not have been the most epic content in the Burning Crusade, but it seems Blizzard is pumping out more of that than most guilds can handle at the moment. Nobody's in Hyal yet, and the Black Temple is coming next patch. In closing, in the most dire content of BC, or it is the most dire content of BC, but there's no reason to knock them for having implemented it. Fair enough. That's an interesting idea, although it has to be said, of course, the reason no one's in Hyal yet is because Vash is unkillable. Virtually unkillable, as we're well aware. It is interesting to see that they have done that. I believe from a lore perspective, yes, it has added a lot, but also demolished a lot, as even lore buffs did kind of turn their head sideways and go, WTF, mate, what are you doing with your spaceships and satellite structures? Pew pew. Hey TB, Snorky Yorkie here from Steamwheel Cartel EU, exploring Outland now. The new races affected roleplay on our server. We had new areas to roleplay in and new races to roleplay with. But there were some tensions because some of the Blood Elf roleplayers weren't very good. And most people only RP'd as Blood Elves, and it got people talking and even spread onto the forums. It is okay now, so the new races have changed RP on our server forever. Now, that's an interesting perspective that I hadn't considered. Obviously, I'm not an RPer, so I don't tend to try and comment on that kind of thing. But the addition of new races has given RPers new content. And it's funny because it's kind of meta content. It's not real content that you can see, taste, experience, and level up of. It's meta content. It's something new that's entered the world which allows people to expand their RP horizons with new lore, with the new styles of speech, with the new characteristics of the new races. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. I will definitely make a concession on that front, that from an RP perspective, yes, absolutely, there could be a lot of there. If anyone's got any experiences as their RP with regards to Blood Elves and Draenei, then feel free to email me, themurloc@gmail.com. We'll cover it a little bit later in the show. Now, Jamie Sperry says this: it really does depend on what games in World of Warcraft you play. For PvP and PvE and grinding, it's almost completely unaffected, except that your characters look different. You can play a new class on your server, and you have new starting areas. However, here's another RPer. If you're an RPer, it can have a huge effect. There are almost endless possibilities, not just for new roles if you re-roll, but the new cities are also very good areas for role-playing. Silvermoon Quel'Thalas for me, not so much the Exodar and the new islands in my opinion. It also gives us a lot of new lore, albeit a lot of it wasn't the best lore ever, and gives us a lot more lore to back up the old lore. You can also look at it as if it was a new game. Me and some RL friends all re-rolled Blood Elves when the expansion came out, but after level 23 or so, we all went back to playing on our old servers. It could be looked at as a waste of time, but in that way, and in that time, we had some fun, and we got the same value out of playing through the new areas as some games. Yeah. It's funny because you've got to look at this from two different perspectives. You can either look at the addition of content from an MMO perspective or from a perspective of gaming in general. Now, if that kind of content was added to, let's say, a generic RPG, then people will be like, woot, awesome. And that is added to other RPGs, although they tend to add classes as well. Single-player games, however, are finite. They do have an ending, so if you want a reason to replay them, then yeah, that's great. Adding a new race is a good excuse. Adding a new class is a better one. Adding new areas, of course, is an even better. The problem with some RPGs, of course, is that you want to stick with a character. Say, Titan Quest, for instance. Titan Quest takes an incredibly long time to get to higher levels, and there are 3 levels of difficulty. Some of the you cannot play. In fact, the 2 at the end, as far as I'm aware, you cannot play with a level 1 character. You have to start on normal and then progress through. And once you get onto epic difficulty, you are rewarded with awesome new items and an entirely new challenge. That's fine. That's like replaying through the old content, but it's got a remix, and you can progress your character. That's probably the best way to compare a single-player game which has a finite ending to WoW in itself. WoW is about getting to the highest level and then progressing your character beyond its usual power level. Now, that's a very interesting way of looking at things, because that's not the way that a lot of single-player games work. Single-player games have an ending, WoW doesn't, which is why adding new racial content can be seen, at least from a general gaming perspective, as a very good idea. And certainly what Jamie Sperry says is very valid there, that they started and replayed as Blood Elves, and that gave them a new experience that, to be quite honest, they probably wouldn't have even got out of just buying a new game and finishing it in 10 or 15 hours or whatever. Now, that is completely valid. if you look at it from that perspective. But if you look at it from the perspective of WoW, where you have a perpetual character that progresses and you want to continue progressing it, because surely that is the basis of the entire game, then adding new races is not really the best way to do that, because all you're going to do is have an excuse to go re-roll and start all over again. And WoW isn't about replay value. Replay value only comes into effect in single-player and to some degree multiplayer titles. WoW is a constant replay. You are doing the same instances week in, week out in an attempt to acquire items. You're attempting to beat new challenges. You're attempting to progress your character and build him in power. And that is the essence of the title. So that's kind of the conclusion to my argument. From an RP perspective, I could certainly see that the race has definitely added a lot. From a PvE and PvP perspective, I'm still not convinced. Great promotional tool, great for re-rollers, but for me as a player who has been playing since day one, didn't really add anything for me at all. Not really going to complain though, because to be fair, it's not like they kind of spent all that much development time on the things. After all, it's only a reskin with new animations and a couple of new zones. And you never know, maybe I will re-roll at some point. But looking at my past history, and my highest out being level 25, it's very unlikely. You're listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, Total Biscuit. Here's our exclusive for live listeners. It's the brand new Terpster song, Cover Your Ears, folks. It's a cover and a parody of a Doobie Brothers track called China Grove. This is Total Biscuit sings Terpster song, and it's called Crossroads. Enjoy.